When I ask you what the best type is in the Pokemon trading card game, some of you might say the Psychic type, because Gardevoir has been dominating the game for so long. Some of you might argue Dragon type, because Dragon type doesn't actually have a weakness other than Clefairy EX, which isn't exactly a type. And others might argue Dark type, because it hits Psychic type for weakness, and Gardevoir is a Psychic type. So, what is that answer? Well, there is no definitive answer, it kind of depends on the meta, but I think there is a very strong case for Dark type being the best type in the game moving forward. So why do I make the claim that the Dark type is going to be the best type in the game moving forward if its biggest greatness is beating Gardevoir, and Gardevoir is rotating out of the format? Well, I think now that Gardevoir is out of the format, we don't have to build these decks in a way that they have to beat Gardevoir. We can make them in a way that they can beat the wider meta. I think a lot of Dark decks, such as Zoroark, are streamlined in a way that they have to beat Gardevoir, whereas now that that matchup is gone and matchups like Goldengo is gone, you have a lot more freedom in the way your deck is built. So this is where our first friend of the video comes in. It is Toxtricity. Toxtricity is a pretty decent Pokemon and a very good energy engine. So for 140 HP, it is a Dark type that is a stage 1 evolving from Toxel. None of that really matters. The main thing we're looking at is the Sinister Surge ability. Once during your turn, you may use this ability. Search your deck for a basic Dark Energy card and attach it to your one of your bench Dark Pokemon. Then shuffle your deck. If you do use this ability, then you have to put 2 damage counters on the Pokemon that you attach the energy to. You might be thinking, well, you know, we've seen a lot of Energy Acceleration cards, and they've been good, they've been bad. Some of them have been really good, like Gardevoir, and some of them have been really bad. So why is this one so good in particular? I won't say it's as good as Gardevoir, because obviously it's not, but there is something in this ability that makes it really worth looking at. It says, search your deck for a basic Dark Energy card. So you see, a lot of these Energy Acceleration Pokemon have a stipulation. So Gardevoir, for example, needs the energy to be in the discard pile. That means you have to have a prior action beforehand to get energy into the discard pile, right? There's another card very similar to Toxtricity in the format right now, which is the Electric or Dynamotor. I don't know what, I think it's called Dynamotor. The ability accelerates energy from your discard pile, right? So you have to have a prior action getting the energy out of your deck into your hand and then into the discard pile, which is, you know, quite a lot. You had to have like something like Earthen Vessel to get the energy into your hand, and then Ultra Ball or another Earthen Vessel or a Professor's Research to discard the energy from your hand into, well, your discard pile. And if you think, yeah, we can still use Earthen Vessel, well, that's rotating, right? Research, rotating. So the only thing we still have out of those 3 cards that I mentioned is the Ultra Ball. So it's a little bit difficult to get energy into the discard pile. Gardevoir itself is also just rotating, so kind of, you know, ignore everything I said about like Gardevoir. Don't compare it to Gardevoir because Gardevoir is rotating and Toxtricity is brand new in the format. So being able to search your deck for a basic Dark Energy card is insane, because you don't need any prior action. You can just slap down your Toxtricity, evolve it straight away, and then start using Sinister Surge and start flooding your board with energy, right? That is really good. And then at the tail end of that ability, it said place 2 damage counters on that Pokemon, whichever Pokemon you attached that energy to. You might be thinking that is a downside. Well, I am here to tell you that is not a downside whatsoever. That is definitely an upside. And that is thanks to another reason the Dark type is so damn good. There's a lot of decks right now in the current format that have Munkidori in them and Dark Energy, even if none of the other Pokemon in that deck actually use Dark Energy for like anything. For example, Dragapult, right? Dragapult plays Luminous Energy because Luminous Energy is so good, obviously, for Dragapult, but also for the Munkidori, because if it has any Dark Energy attached to it, you may move up to 3 damage counters from one of your Pokemon to one of your opponent's Pokemon. This is really, really strong. When you pair it with the Toxtricity, which damages your Pokemon, you can now move that damage over and set up easier knockouts. But what would you be taking those knockouts with? Well, Mega Absol is a Pokemon that has, you know, tried and true. It's already good. It's already in a deck, the Mega Box, and has, you know, kind of ventured out of Mega Box. It's been seen in things like Gardevoir, ironically enough. It's also been seen in things like Zoroark. So the card itself is really good. It has a pretty good first attack, terminal period. If your opponent's active Pokemon has exactly 6 damage counters on it, that Pokemon is knocked out. And you can kind of see Munkidori can set up those damage counters. If we attach 3 energy to the Mega Absol, we deal 6 damage to that. And if we have 2 Munkidori on the bench, we can now move that 6 damage onto our opponent's active Pokemon and then terminal period, knock it out. And in a format that is going to be very much so heavily dominated by Mega Pokemon, being able to just come out of nowhere and just, knock out a Mega for 3 prize cards is really, really strong. And then Claw of Darkness does 200 damage, right? 200 damage is a pretty decent number. Dragapult is a Pokemon that is arguably the best deck in the game right now and hits for 200, right? And you might be saying, oh, but it also does 6 damage to the bench. Well, if we attach 3 energy to Mega Absol, we take 6 damage counters. With 2 Munkidori, we now have a pseudo Phantom dive. We can deal 200 damage and then move that 6 damage counters over across to our opponent's board, right? And we also get the addition of revealing our opponent's hand for info and then discarding a card we find there. So this is really, really strong. We could play something like a Judge to limit our opponent down to 4 cards, then Claw of Darkness, taking a knockout on the active, maybe also dealing some damage to the bench, and then discarding the most vital card out of the already limited 4-card hand. So that is obviously really strong, but that is not where really nice attackers end. So we have something called Brute Bonnet. Brute Bonnet, when I say Brute Bonnet, you're going to be thinking of 1 card. You're going to be thinking of the ability version from Paradox that, poisons both active Pokemon, right? And fair enough, right? That is definitely the better one and the one that has seen play. In fact, that card won an international event. When that card was in the cloth deck, the Donk deck, it was really good, right? In any poison box deck, that card is there. It is the engine of the poison box deck. Well, that card is rotating and we are now using a different Brute Bonnet. And this one has a really good attack. Poison Spray is not that attack. We are looking at Relentless Punches. Relentless Punches says it is 50 damage, but it also does 50 more damage for each damage counter on our opponent's active Pokemon already. For example, if our opponent's active Pokemon has 4 damage counters on it, we are dealing 250 damage, essentially 290 damage because it already has 4 damage counters on it, right? So that is very, very strong. If it has 5 damage counters on it, we are dealing 300 damage, right? It is very, very powerful. It has a great attack for 3 energy as a 1-prizer. This is really strong. So obviously, if we move the 6 damage counters over onto our opponent's board, we are now dealing 350 damage, plus the 6, 410 damage. We are essentially knocking out anything in our opponent's field, right? We're knocking out whatever is inactive, regardless if it is a Mega, whatever. It is dying, right? So very, very powerful card, and one that I think is going to be doing really good in the upcoming format, the upcoming post-rotation format, because Relentless Punches is so good. And now that you kind of understand why I think the Dark type is going to be so good, let's take a look at some of the deck lists, right? So this is not a post-rotation deck list. We'll get into post-rotation deck lists soon, because I know obviously people clicked on this video because it's essentially a post-rotation video. Well, this one is just here to show you how powerful the Brute Bonnet deck is. This got top 16 at a Champions League. Very interesting deck. It is obviously built around the Arven engine with the Precious Trolley and then the TM Evo. We are unfortunately losing TM Evo and Arven, but the rest of this deck is it's here, right? The rest of the deck is here. I guess we are losing Arven. It's just a very consistent version of this deck. It's very streamlined, but definitely not the main thing we are looking at. We're kind of be looking at other things like this. For example, this is another nice Dark Box deck. It does, however, have the Pekrunt. So these decks can be built now. The only thing you kind of have to substitute is the Pokepad. Unfortunately, that is something that we do not have access to in the West because that is in our Mega Dream set. But this deck is very playable right now. You can essentially just cut this for 2 Ultra Balls, right? The same way in the deck that I just showed you right now, you can cut these for 2 Ultra Balls and the deck will still function in basically the exact same way. Then there's something more along the lines that I think is going to be pretty good moving forward. It's just a very heavy Toxtricity angle, and then with the different various attackers like Mega Absol, the Pekrunt, Pheasantipity itself can be an attacker, the Brute Bonnet, and obviously the Yveltal, because Yveltal is just such a good card in these Dark. So this is a list that I think it looks really, really good going into the post-rotation. This is a fully post-rotation version of the deck. It is playing a 4-3 line of the Toxtricity, and it is playing 2 of the Mega Kangaskhan. The one thing you might argue that this deck was missing was the draw engine, and Kangaskhan does fix that, being able to draw 2 cards every single turn. It is just really, really powerful. And then we just are playing a very, very consistent deck. We're playing 4 Ultra Ball, 4 Pokepad, 2 Mega Signal to be able to get our 4 Mega Pokemon into play, because this deck definitely does require these Mega Pokemon. Then we're playing 2 Energy Switch, meaning we can kind of out of nowhere manually attach to a Munkidori, Energy Switch to a different Munkidori, be able to move 6 damage counters, and then do something like Terminal Period. And then for the ace spec of choice, we are playing the Unfair Stamp. You might be thinking, well, how do we find this Unfair Stamp? How do we find anything that we need on that turn without something like an Arven, right? Well, that is where the draw engine of this deck comes in. It is the Cypher Maniac's Code Breaking. So with the power of something like the Pekarunt, we can, let's say, slap a air balloon onto something like the Toxtricity. If something dies on the previous turn, we can push up the Kangaskhan. We can use our Cypher Maniac's Code Breaking to get whatever we want, maybe Unfair Stamp, maybe Night Stretcher, maybe the Energy Switch, whatever we really need, put it on the top of our deck, use Run Errand, draw both of those cards, put them into our hand, and then we can use the Pekarunt to switch the Mega Kangaskhan to the bench with the Toxtricity that we have an air balloon with, and then we can free retreat out of that guy into whatever attacker we want, whether it is the Bonnet, whether it is the Absol. And obviously we can attack with the Mega Kangaskhan itself sometimes, right? The Kangaskhan is a pretty decent attacker. For 3 energy it does 200 damage, and then obviously we can deal more damage if we flip some heads. So flipping heads is not really, the best way to play the game, but it is something that we can do. With energy switches, it is definitely very possible to get this guy powered up in a single turn. But since we don't have to commit our energy attachment for turn onto our attackers, we can commit it to the Munkidoris. We can have a bunch of Munkidoris on our bench and essentially be playing the exact same deck that this mega box was before, except with a more stable energy engine, right? You might be saying, it does take up bench space, and you would be correct, but honestly, even if you just set up one of these guys every turn, it's getting you an energy, which is perfectly fine. So if you don't miss attach for turn, since you're playing 10 energy cards in this deck, you're essentially getting 2 energy every single turn into play, which is perfectly fine. In the first, let's say, 2 turns of the game, there won't be any attacks going on from either side, so you'll essentially have 4 energy attached before you actually have to start swinging. And that's not to say you have to only have one of these guys in play. If you have 2 of them in play, you can be getting 3 energy into play every single turn. So if let's say you have only 2 in play for 2 turns, you can get 6 energy attached to your board, which is very, very nice. Then you are playing the Energy Recycler. Since this attaches from deck, you do need the energy in the deck, so you can just shuffle your energy from the discard pile into your deck, and then get them out of your deck onto your Pokemon in any way you like. So it definitely has a lot of power here, and since Iono is rotating, I think the ace spec Unfair Stamp is really good, because there's going to be a major lack of disruption in the format. Since Iono is no longer in the format, the only disruption in the format is going to be something like the Judge, right, or the Unfair Stamp itself. And something like a Zoroark makes this deck very, very powerful, because we can limit our opponent to 3 cards. We can make them discard cards from their hand until they only have 3 cards in their hand, and then we can use the Claw of Darkness to discard one of those cards, putting them down to 2 cards in their hand. Same thing with the Unfair Stamp. We can force them to shuffle down to 2 cards in their hand, and then we can use the Claw of Darkness to put them down to a single card in their hand. So if our opponent gets a little bit too aggressive in the beginning of the game, well, unfortunately for you, you're getting stamped, right? And we can grab that with one of our Cypher Maniacs. We can grab the Cypher Maniac and then put the Unfair Stamp on the top of our deck, maybe like a Pokepad as well for a Toxtricity, and straight from there we can be flying really fast. So I think the Dark type is going to be really good. I really do think it's going to be very strong, because of Munkidori, because of Toxtricity, because of things like Grimsley might be decent going forward, and obviously just Dark type Pokemon are just so good. I think the Pekarunt is just such a good card in the format right now as well, being able to pivot stuff, being able to poison stuff with the Mochi still in the format, so you will just be able to get a lot of value out of that. Well, that's from me. Peace.